Okay, so you want to buy a chateau in France. Great. Let's start at the beginning. What is a chateau? Well, it might surprise you to learn that there is no definition in France of what is a chateau. France has an organisation to decide if a new word to the French language should be la or le, but it doesn't have an organisation to decide if a building should be classified as a chateau. So, for the most part, to quote a former US Supreme Court justice, I know it when I see it. Generally, the much older chateaux are a bit smaller and more fortified. Over time, as security became less of a concern, chateaux have become grander and they're really displays of wealth and power. There are lots of regional variations across all of France. Around Bordeaux, for instance, chateau is most associated with wine, but that isn't necessarily the case in other areas of France. It's not the size or the architectural style, but you know it when you see it. So, how many chateaux even are there in France? Well, there are estimated to be over 45,000, but only around 10,000 of those are classified as historic monuments. What that classification means is that they're protected in some way by the state, so making changes or alterations might be more difficult, expensive, and time consuming. The protection of having this status could be to the entire structure, it could be to just the exterior, or maybe just to some particular features of the building. If you're looking at a potential option and there is a reference to having monument historique status, you should find out exactly what is included, as it could impact your plans for the future. It's worth noting too that most chateaux are privately owned, nearly 90%, and you can see around 500 a year will be bought and sold. 5% of those are owned by Americans. At the fixer upper end of the market, they can go for around 300,000 or maybe a bit under, but fully renovated, it's obviously a lot more. I had a look on one of the websites this morning and they had something listed for over 100 million euros. So, how do you find a chateau to buy? Well, lots of the familiar places list them and either have an option to pick that style of property or you can do a keyword search. There are some additional options here that exclusively look at prestigious properties, though, including chateaux. Also, there's always FSBO chateaux, believe it or not. This brings me on to another point I wanted to make. Chateaux are enormous buildings. They're very expensive to run. That means that lots of people who own chateaux run them as a business and use them to make an income. Hotels, B&Bs, yoga retreats, events, particularly weddings. What does that mean for you as a potential buyer? Well, if you see a listing for something that looks renovated, it probably is a business, and that business will advertise online. So often it can be relatively easy to see a listing and find the business. That could help you in two ways. Firstly, we know that location is an issue. If you find the business though, that means you found the exact location, so you can see if that location could work for you. Secondly, you've probably found a way to contact the owner. If it's not an exclusive listing, even if the owner is not actively advertising it as FSBO, they might be happy to deal with you direct. They also might not want to, and they might want to go to the agent, but it doesn't hurt to ask. The flip side, though, is that lots of businesses, particularly events businesses who maybe take bookings several years in advance, they don't want people who've made those future bookings necessarily to know that they're trying to sell. Selling big expensive properties in France can take several years. So that means there are a number of chateaux for sale that you will not see listed anywhere publicly. So how do you find out about those? Well, the only way is to connect with some agents, let them know what your criteria is, and ask them if they have anything not on the website. So let's recap. What did we cover? There's no definition of a chateau, and that there are lots of different styles that vary by age and where they are in France. We covered that there really are lots of chateaux out there and a wide range of price points. Most don't have protected building status, but those that do can make renovations more difficult. Be careful. We covered where and how you could search for a chateau, and that there will be lots for sale that aren't listed anywhere.